You're watching Gardening on Taylor Mountain, and I'm Bobby. I wanted to talk with you today about hellebores. I am in love with hellebores. My love of hellebores started about 4 years ago when I was visiting a dear friend in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and we were walking through her yard. It was probably around, mid-February, late February, something like that. And she said, my hellebores are starting to wake up. My hellebores are starting to push through and wake up some new growth. And I said, hellebores, hellebores, oh, where have you been all my life? So as soon as I got home, what did I do? I bought a hellebore, and that started my journey and my love of hellebores. And I have 9 in my garden now. I really wanted to film this video out where my hellebores are actually planted. So hopefully the pictures that I'm sharing with you throughout this video will show you the different hellebores I have. But it's quite windy today, and I have had my camera blow over on other windy days, so I don't want that to happen. So instead, I'm filming here in my new garden shed. I've been itching anyway to film in the garden shed, but I was so excited. I talked to my husband and I said, hubby, I would like a garden shed. And that was kind of my Christmas, birthday, anniversary, because they're all around the same time, Valentine's Day, Christmas the following year gift. And so we just got it finished, and I'll give you a tour. I'm going to give you a tour at some point of my greenhouse. I have a small greenhouse and this garden shed, but where on earth did I keep all this stuff before? I don't know. So anyway, I was happy to use these apple boxes. These were used here on the farm because there was a working orchard on the farm. My husband's family worked the orchard for many, many years. And so anyway, these apple boxes are from that, so it was exciting to be able to use those. Back to talking about hellebores. Now, hellebores are hardy in zones 4 through 9. There's really some differing information online about the hardiness of hellebores. I read one article that said they're hardy in zones 6 through 9, and I know that's incorrect, because I live in a zone 6B, and the hellebores do great for me, and they're much more hardy than just stopping at a zone 6. I read another article that said zones 3 through 9, but for the most part, I think the general rule of thumb is they're hardy in zones 4 through 9. So, but if you live in a zone 3, please let us know. Please let us know how hellebores do for you. And in fact, if you would leave me a comment letting me know what hardiness zone you grow in, and if you don't know your hardiness zone, you can just simply Google that by typing in, what is my hardiness zone for, and put your zip code in, and you should be able to find your hardiness zone that way. It's pretty important that you do know your growing hardiness zone. That way you can know what will live in your area and what will do well for you and what won't. Hellebores will usually flower for you and bloom for you during the months of February through May. I've seen blooms on my hellebores as early as December. They will basically go dormant for you during the hot summer months. They'll get all sort of wilty looking down. I had a lady at a nursery one time, she said to me, don't let hellebore lie to you and tell you that it needs a lot of water during the summer, because they are basically going to sleep. Now, yeah, you do want to, water your hellebores occasionally, but let them go to sleep during the summer. Let them do their thing, and let them just, have that sleep time period. So that was a lot of good information that, that lady told me. Little tidbits here and there of information is really a lot how we learn in gardening. When I was editing this video back, I noticed that I did not mention anything about light requirements for the hellebore. So I'm just kind of inserting this little part in, and I'm sitting here at the corner of my porch because it's the only shady area right now. But your hellebore likes part shade. Now the tag may say, in fact this tag says part shade to full shade. And not that I want to go against the tag or anything, but I have found that mine do very, very well in part shade with a little bit of dappled sunlight. They color up the best. They don't reach for, they don't reach for the light. And so I'm real happy with the part shade situation. Mine are under a dogwood tree. And of course right now your trees have not leafed out. So they're getting even some morning dappled sunlight, but of course the sun is not nearly as strong at this time of year as it is during the hot summer, when they need that shade and they need that afternoon protection. So that's your light requirement, part shade. And if you have yours in a woodland area under trees or something like that, that's a good spot, because the hellebores love that sort of compost. You have the decomposed forest compost, you have some leaf compost and things like that. When you see the new growth coming forth in the late winter, early spring, you want to go in and pull some of those leaves and whatever debris away from that growth. Give that growth some room to breathe, because you don't want to be harboring any insects or disease or anything like that. So those are the couple things that I failed to mention in the rest of the video. And I don't know if you can see here, but I came home with another hellebore the other day, Penny's Pink. I think this is the one that gets the pink veining on the leaves. And it was at the same nursery that I talk about the lady in this video. That was the same nursery. The same lady was there. We chatted. We talked about perennials. We talked about hellebores. They had a gorgeous 2 rows of gorgeous hellebores. I don't know why I didn't take a picture so that you could see, but they were gorgeous. But we had a nice chat about perennials and plants and things, other things. And we talked about how we were praying for Ukraine and the people there. And when I was driving away, I just was kicking myself that I didn't ask if she would be willing to take a selfie with me so that you could see what she looks like, because I've talked about her a couple of times in my videos. She's such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to perennials, and she's the kind of person, she's very humble. She doesn't know she's this wealth of knowledge. So that makes her all the more, more enjoyable to talk to. Anyway, just wanted to slide these couple things in there. So back to the video. When you see your hellebores start to wake up, around late January, something like that, mid-January, late January, and you see the new growth and the buds start pushing through, then it's time to cut back the old growth of your hellebore. And you'll be able to tell, because the leaves get kind of tattered looking, the foliage gets a bit tattered looking. So you just want to cut that down. I usually leave just a little bit of the stem of the old foliage in my hellebore, and just cut it back and discard that. And then your hellebore will put all of its energy into the new growth and the blooms that they're wanting to push forth. I do not fertilize my hellebores. Hellebores actually prefer a good compost just worked in around the soil. So I usually do that in early spring, just work in some compost right around the base of the hellebore. Hellebores can be a bit fussy. They don't really like to be bothered. They don't really like to be messed with. They don't really like to be moved. Of course, in some cases you may have to move one, and you would do that in the fall. For the most part, if you can leave the hellebore where you put it, it's going to be its happiest. Now, hellebores will self-seed themselves. They can spread by seeds, and in fact, you can grow hellebores from seed. You would direct sow your seed in the fall for your hellebores. However, it's going to take several years before you're going to see any blooms if you start your hellebores from seed. I think that's why we pretty much, prefer to buy the established hellebores, because after all, we're after the blooms. Mine have really not spread by self-seeding themselves. The clump or the crown of the hellebore will spread that way and get a little larger, but I personally have not had experience with my hellebores self-seeding themselves. When you plant the hellebore, you want to make sure to plant the crown just even a bit slightly above the ground. You don't want to plant it too deeply, is what I'm trying to say, because that will lessen your blooms. So just do take care when you're planting. You can use the blooms of the hellebores as cut flowers. You would want to wait till the bloom is completely open, and even the middle seed head part is itself opened. That way it will last longer for you in the vase. I very rarely use them as cut flowers. I have a couple of times, but I like to see them out in the garden. I just enjoy them so much because their blooms last for a long time. And like I said, they will bloom for you from February until about May, when they start to really getting ready to go to sleep, during those hot summer months. The hellebores are deer resistant and rabbit resistant, and that's a good thing. I do have a bit of a rabbit problem in some of my garden areas, so they pretty much stay away from the hellebore. Also, you may have heard the hellebore called Lenten Rose. That's another name for the hellebore. They are also known to be a bit toxic. When I handle the hellebores, I always wear gloves. They can be toxic to dogs and cats and even children. So you want to be careful and you want to be aware of what's going on in your garden. I talked to a grower one time and I said, what about the situation with different things saying that they are toxic, different plants or shrubs toxic to animals or people or whatever. And he said, in all of my years of growing, I've never had someone come in and say, my dog died or my cat died or got sick or whatever from eating one of my plants. So I think, for the most part, animals really have a sense, and they have a sense about things that are toxic, and they stay away from that. As far as your children, you want to be, aware and teach them, don't eat that flower, don't eat this. I think it's all about educating, your children, teaching them, you don't touch certain things. And you can look and you don't touch them, because if you do touch them, you need to go in and wash your hands, or you need to learn to wear gloves while you're, helping mommy in the garden or helping daddy in the garden. I do have 2 hellebores in my garden, and you're seeing the pictures now that we're struggling a little bit. I can see the new growth and some of the blooms pushing through, but for whatever reason, they didn't overwinter real well. Now that may have been due to the plant itself may have been a bit unhealthy when I bought it. I really don't know, and sometimes that happens. But for the most part, hellebores are an easy perennial to grow, enjoyable perennial that you'll really like having in your garden. I hope some of this information has been helpful to you, and I encourage you to do some research yourself about hellebores. And also you learn by different experience in your garden. And woo, that wind, I hear it. Thank you so much for joining me today. And until next time, happy gardening. Bye-bye.